Welcome to the Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're going to jump right in and go on an incredible journey. We are going to completely reframe how you think about a tool you literally use every single day. Yeah, I'm talking about the money right there in your pocket, your wallet, and on your phone. We all kind of assume we understand it, right? But its history is packed with wild surprises. Let's find out where it actually came from. Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever been taught that money was invented simply because bartering was, well, too annoying? You know the classic story. You've got chickens, I've got shoes, but you don't want my shoes, so we invent money to make the trade happen. Well, we need to introduce a major knowledge gap right off the bat and completely shatter that assumption. Did money actually replace bartering? Take the classical barter hypothesis, famously championed by Adam Smith. He argued that money replaced the sheer inefficiency of trying to match up trading partners. And hey, it makes perfect logical sense. But contrast that with the credit and debt theory, put forward by anthropologists like David Graeber. The astonishing truth is that anthropological evidence shows absolutely no historical society ever relied primarily on pure barter. None. Instead, Graeber points out that money emerged first as a unit of account to measure debt. It was basically just a way to quantify the phrase, hey, I owe you one. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at how the earliest recorded money actually functioned in the ancient world. Section 1, the Ledger of Trust, Mesopotamia's dead. We're jumping way back to 3000 BC in Mesopotamia. These massive institutions like temples used clay tablets and little tokens to track debts. Farmers would deposit their surplus crops, mostly barley, straight into the temple storehouses. In return, the temple would record a credit on a clay tablet. This created this highly structured economic system where the whole concept of credit and debt predated shiny minted coins by thousands of years. So the crucial concept to take away here is the money of account. This is a monetary system where value is recorded purely as debits and credits on ledgers, rather than passing physical currency back and forth. Right from the absolute dawn of civilization, money was essentially a formalized system of trust and debt. You didn't necessarily hand over a coin to buy something. You literally just had a central ledger update your tab. But, as civilizations grew and people started trading with foreigners outside their local temple's jurisdiction, abstract ledgers weren't always going to cut it. We see a major shift toward physical proxy items used to settle these debts across different regions. Section 2, early commodity money from cattle to shells. As trade blew up, people desperately needed physical items that were easily portable and held intrinsic value to facilitate exchange with total strangers. Enter commodity money. These are objects that have value in themselves, totally independent of their use as currency. Think about it. If a trade fell through, you could still eat, wear, or use the actual commodity. What is genuinely wild here is the bizarre variety of historical commodities people used and how their ghosts still haunt our everyday language. Cattle were universally prized, right? Well, the Latin word for a head of cattle is capita, which is the exact origin of our modern financial word capital. Salt was used to pay Roman soldiers, giving us the word salary. Cowrie shells were this massive global currency used across ancient China, Africa, and India. And of course, barley was the standard in Mesopotamia. The ghosts of these ancient commodities are literally hiding in the financial words we use every single day. But eventually, trading literal cows and measuring out bags of salt became a massive bottleneck for fast-paced commerce. This leads us to Section 3, the Lydian innovation, standardized coins. Let's travel to the Kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey. In the 7th century BC, they were the very first to stamp official coins from a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver known as electrum. Now, it seems like an obvious step to us today, but this specific region solved a massive friction point in ancient trade, the exhausting problem of constantly weighing and testing precious metals. And this brilliantly illustrates why it mattered so much. Before Lydia's innovation, using unweighed metal meant pulling out a scale and testing the purity at every single transaction, just to make sure you weren't getting ripped off. It was horribly slow. The Lydian solution of stamped coins changed the game entirely. By slapping an official royal seal on the metal, the governing authority guaranteed its exact weight and value. You didn't have to weigh it anymore. You just had to count it. This standardization accelerated trade across the ancient world like wildfire. Now, as you can probably guess, faster trade meant more wealth, and more wealth meant way more coins.
all that success eventually created a literal logistical nightmare, and it was China that solved it. Section 4. The Weight of Wealth. China's Paper Innovation.
Let's jump ahead to the 11th century, during China's Song dynasty. The economy is absolutely booming, and merchants are conducting these massive transactions using giant strings of copper coins. The sheer bulk and weight of these metal coins became a ridiculously heavy burden to transport over long distances. I mean, it was exhausting and genuinely dangerous. To fix this, merchants started leaving their heavy coins in deposit shops, trading lightweight paper deposit receipts instead. So the invention of paper promissory notes wasn't just some clever brainstorm, it was practically forced into existence by the unbearable physical weight of metal money. When European outsiders finally witnessed this system, it absolutely blew their minds. Just look at this quote from the famous explorer Marco Polo during his time in the Yuan dynasty. How the Great Khan causes the bark of trees made into something like paper to pass for money all over his country. To a European economy strictly anchored to the hard, intrinsic value of gold and silver, the idea that a flimsy piece of paper could hold immense wealth seemed completely insane. It required a massive societal leap of faith and a tremendous amount of institutional trust. Let's zoom out and see how this all builds together. We have our physical anchors starting in the 7th century BC, when Lydia issues the first stamped coins. In the 11th century AD, China invents paper banknotes to represent those coins. And that final date, 1971 AD, represents the end of the gold standard. This bird's-eye view perfectly bridges the ancient physical world, where money actually had intrinsic value, straight into our modern, completely abstract economy. Which brings us right to our own doorstep, transitioning into the final major paradigm shift of our monetary history. Section 5. The Abstract Era. Modern Fiat Currency. The year is 1971. This marks a massive macroeconomic shift known as the Nixon shock. Up until this point, major currencies like the US dollar were still technically tied to physical bullion, specifically gold. You could theoretically map your paper money to a physical asset in a vault somewhere, but in 1971, the US dollar was officially and permanently detached from gold. This fully ushered in the era of fiat money. Fiat money is currency that holds value primarily because a government maintains its value, not because it's backed by any physical commodity. In taking this step, our global economy essentially reverted to a system relying entirely on trust and ledgers. We literally completed a 5,000-year circle right back to the clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia. The money in your bank account has value simply because we all collectively agree to trust the ledger. And that technology of trust? It hasn't stopped evolving. In the 1950s, the introduction of charge cards completely abstracted away the physical handover of cash. Fast forward to the 1990s, and widespread electronic banking turned our money into pure data, just ones and zeros sitting on a bank's server. Then, in 2008, a protocol called Bitcoin was introduced. By using cryptography to solve the digital double spending problem, it allowed for a decentralized, trustless ledger totally outside of the traditional banking system. We are just constantly inventing highly technical new ways to record who owes what to whom. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating reality to ponder. Over thousands of years, money has evolved from abstract temple ledgers to cows to stamped electrum to paper and right back to abstract digital data. At its core, money is just a social technology. So if money is ultimately just a shared belief in a giant ledger of debts, what will we choose to believe in next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this look at the history of money has completely changed how you view the world of commerce around you. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.